scenes guys over in the ring. Um, Interesting WrestleMania for these guys, meaning the whole company of WWE, man and women. Um, they're really trying to get past the Vince McMahon stuff. Of course, that's still dragging on. Did they go overboard with that? I mean, they started thanking Triple H on Friday night. Do we need to continuously thank Triple H? Is that helping the audience? I mean, is that part of the process of getting beyond Vince McMahon and all his baggage? But we don't. I mean, I don't know. I just felt like it was a bit much. I think that type of thanking is fine for the Hall of Fame on Friday night, but when he starts getting into Saturday and Sunday, it just seems like too much. Like you're kind of bringing your backstage stuff into the ring. There's Nick Khan at ringside, front row. I'm assuming with his kid. So it looks like they're going to go with Cody for a while. I mean, I can't imagine that this is going to be like a weekend title change and put the title back on Roman on Monday night or the next pay-per-view. I mean, with all this ceremony, you have to think that Cody's title reign is going to last at least a few months, if not a year. It seems like these longer title reigns are something that they're getting into, and who knows what's going to happen with Roman? Is he going to go off and do a movie or two with his cousin? Who knows? Mr. Rombaum and everybody else, you can chime in with your opinions. What would you give this show out of 5? I'd probably give it a 4. I think it was a good show. I did like the Bayley match a lot. It seemed, Bayley's a good wrestler because, I mean, her knee, she had me convinced that her knee was having problems. I don't know if it actually was, but it seemed convincing. And, there were some other good matches on this show. Let's dig into them. The first match was really interesting. Drew McIntyre challenging Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins with a really fun introduction. Actually, Drew had a really good introduction too with the Scottish bagpipes. Kind of gave me Piper flashbacks. But Drew coming out with the bagpipes, and Seth coming out with the band. I guess kind of like a New Orleans band type of thing. Really crazy outfit. Seth playing up the match from last night with the injuries. And Drew starts off strong with a Claymore kick and then continues to go strong and eventually gets the pin. So you think, okay, well, Drew McIntyre's your new champion. Well, not so fast. During the match, Drew and CM Punk, who was at ringside doing commentary, had some interactions. And then afterwards, Drew felt the need to kind of rub it in CM Punk's face and give him the old, suck it chop block or crotch chop. And then we saw what happened. Damian Priest, CM Punk wails him with the arm cast thing, the arm support. And then Damian Priest comes out and takes the title and the Money in the Bank cash in. So, I mean, that was pretty interesting. So now you've got Damian Priest has fulfilled his senior Money in the Bank. And kind of CM Punk and Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins are all kind of left without this title, which is interesting. And we'll see what happens. I mean, Drew and Seth and CM Punk all seem to be kind of tweeners at this point, meaning at least with that angle, they're all kind of between babyface and heel. It's hard to say exactly who's who. I mean, I guess you would say that CM Punk's the babyface and Drew McIntyre's the heel, but a lot of times Drew is playing stuff up like he's a baby face. And let's see what else. I'm not sure if my buddy here, Gonzo, is going to join me. Gonzo, who knows? I mean, I try to get some other co-hosts on tonight, but people are so they're wiping their eyes from all the tears of joy because Cody Rhodes has fulfilled his destiny and lived his dream. All right, guys, what's next? The next, try to go this in order here. So we had a title change to start the show. What was next anyway? Was it the street fight? Was that next? The Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits versus the Final Testament. You had Paul Ellering, the authors of Pain, the Karrion Kross with the hair. It was decent for what it was. I mean, it wasn't spectacular, but you had the B-Fab and you had Scarlett Bordeaux getting involved. It was fine. I mean, I was saying the other day that I thought that if anyone needed the victory in this match to score the pin, it was probably Karrion Kross. He looked good in this match, but he took the pin instead of getting the pin. And I thought that was kind of, I'd say, disappointing. I mean, it seems like Karrion Kross is one of these guys that McMahon didn't like, Vince McMahon didn't like. Triple H seemed to be in his corner. And tonight would have been a nice breakthrough performance for him, or breakthrough victory. But instead, it was just another disappointment. So we'll see what goes on with that. God, what else? Then we had, what was the next match, guys? Was it the triple threat match for the United States title? Am I going in the correct order here? Randy Orton and Kevin Owens kind of unusually coming into the ring together to face Logan Paul, the champion, the defending champion. This was better than I thought it would be. I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, of the three, Randy Orton definitely has the most established WWE career, but Kevin Owens has been there for about 10 years now himself. So I mean, Kevin Owens at this point is a WWE veteran. I thought the match was very good. It wasn't an all-time classic, but these triangle matches are always kind of goofy. In this one, you had two baby faces and one heel, so that kind of makes it a little more complicated. I thought they did a good job with telling this story and getting in and out of it. And Logan Paul retains. Somebody had to take the pin, and Kevin Owens is known for doing what it takes to keep things going with the business. So that was fine. The guy that went through the table, the guy in the prime thing, I really don't know who that is. I guess that's a social influencer of some kind. Let's see. Golf franchise checking in. I thought Kevin Owens should have won. Yeah, I mean, it would have played into the whole thing with if Kevin Owens had won, and we saw last night the big upset with Sami Zayn winning the Intercontinental title from Gunther. You would have had a nice parallel there. I think this could have been a thing, golf franchise, where simply put, too many titles. They don't want to change all the titles on the same shows. We've kind of learned that in recent years. I remember a time back, especially with the old NWA pay-per-views, talk about Chi-Town '89, where like they had the U.S. title and the world title and the TV title all changed hands in one night. But I think in more recent times, golf franchise, especially with WWE, they really measure out their title changes. And I think tonight, what was there? 3 title changes, and there was the tag team title change last night. I think they just Intercontinental. So I think was there 5 title changes of some kind. I guess you could call the tag team 6 because there was 2 tag team titles last night. The Intercontinental, a woman's title tonight, and the world title, obviously, with Cody. And so I think they just got to a point where they just didn't want to change one more title. I think that's, in that regard, Kevin Owens and the parallel with Sami just had to take a back seat to having a champion retain, and I can understand that. You always want to leave something. I mean, I think with the wrestling, you can do all the big angles and all the big payoffs on 1 or 2 shows, but you do want to leave something for the next show, right? What do we have next, gentlemen? I think, wow, I'm looking at this thing. It doesn't seem like there was a whole lot of matches tonight. I guess there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that right? Was there only 6 matches on this card? Am I missing something? Was there any dark matches or not dark matches, but pre-show matches? I didn't really watch the pre-show tonight. I watched it last night. But so our next match, I want to say, was the women's match, right? Or was it LA Knight and AJ Styles? It might have been LA Knight and AJ Styles. This, for me, I have to admit, I was kind of distracted. I had a Zoom call. Some other wrestling fans throughout the world, actually in Pennsylvania, were doing like kind of a streaming thing or an online discussion. I hopped in there. Then there was some food being offered to me. So I took the food offer, and I basically missed the majority of that match, AJ Styles and LA Knight. I did see that or AJ Styles looked very big. I mean, we've been saying that. He's very swole now. Remember swole from AEW, but AJ Styles is looking very muscular and thick. So, but I guess he lost. So there you go. But I don't really have much to say about that match because I really didn't see much of it. And then I think we had the ladies match. Io Sky defending her title against Bailey. The crowd was really behind Bailey in this, singing to her. I don't quite get that. I mean, it's very simp behavior, in my opinion. You know, you have this stadium and you have all these, seems like mostly men are serenading this woman's wrestler. But I mean, you know, I guess it's good. They do that a lot in the European shows, and I guess the Philadelphia fans are European in some regard because they like to sing to Bailey, and I find it distracting. Some of those suplexes look pretty stiff that Io Sky was delivering to Bailey. Bailey was getting kind of stacked up, so to speak, on her neck. I was a little, I guess you could say, concerned. But Bailey, you know, it was a good match. It was good drama. Bailey, I guess, is the last woman standing, at least tonight. No, her and Becky Lynch, because Becky Lynch was there last night. But of these four horsewomen, this year, we only saw two represented at WrestleMania. Obviously, the former Sasha Banks is now Mercedes Moné on the other channel. And Becky Lynch is still there, but she lost to Rhea Ripley last night. And, our girl Bailey here wins this championship, so that's nice to see. Who knows? Maybe Becky Lynch will come over and challenge Bailey. I don't know if they ever did that on the main roster, unless I'm really forgetting something. They probably did. I'm just forgetting it. But did they ever have an extended Bailey versus Becky program on either Raw or SmackDown? I mean, they did pretty much every possible combination of Charlotte and Becky and Sasha Banks and Bailey, but off the top of my head, unless I'm forgetting something, maybe from 2019 when Bailey first kind of turned heel, am I forgetting some type of Bailey Becky Lynch program? I might be, but that might be good. And it was a good match. And then I think, unless I'm mistaken, let's see, we had the Street Profits street fight, we had LA Knight, we had the triple threat, we had Drew and Seth. Snoop Dogg doing some commentary tonight. I guess I wasn't terribly impressed. I mean, I wanted to ask, Snoop Dogg, how much does that guy weigh? I thought his commentary was less than adequate. But the main event was very fun. Drew and my buddy there, AJ Norris, is saying WWE is back. He was very impressed. People were pretty excited about this. The people seem to have liked this show. And then our main event, and I thought it was the way to go. Now, I will say this. Our buddy there, Brian Alvarez, on the Wrestling Observer Radio, kind of ruined this whole thing for me because he obviously got the inside scoop. So Alvarez on the Wrestling Observer basically said that this was going to be about a 45-minute match with a lot of cameos, and he basically spoiled the match, to tell you the truth, because I guess he had the inside word. So I guess those guys over at Wrestling Observer, sometimes they do know what they're talking about. Sometimes they do have the inside track. Right now, the WWE press conference is starting. I thought that overall the show was very good, guys. Like I said, 4 out of 5 stars. I don't think this was one of the greatest nights of WrestleMania ever. I think if you equate this one to 2 years ago, I'd still go with that one, with the Stone Cold, Kevin Owens thing. I don't think that this group of whether it's, Triple H, Paul Heyman, and so forth, whoever's running the show now, they can say that they're doing just as well as Vince did or under the Vince regime. But I don't think you would look at these 2 nights and say, oh my God, this is head and shoulders above anything that Vince ever did. I'd say you could say it held its own, as far as scope, as far as the main event with all these cameos. That was fun. But I don't think we need to go overboard and say, oh my God, now we're drinking water and yesterday we were, in a desert. Golf Franchise says, I wish he was Stone Cold instead of Undertaker at the end. It's funny you mentioned that, Golf Franchise, because I think when I listened to Alvarez today, I think he did drop the Steve Austin Stone Cold name as one of these cameos, and that did not happen. So Stone Cold's an interesting guy. Like, if he doesn't feel something, it seems like he's just not going to do it. It seems like he kind of wants to just be retired, but for whatever reason, they were able to get him out of the house 2 years ago. But yeah, Undertaker's still very active, though. I mean, with the Hall of Fame on Friday, he inducted Muhammad Ali. It really feels like Undertaker's one of these wrestlers that didn't want to retire, but just eventually did because the wheels were falling off. So like I said, folks, I thought this was a fine show. Was it the greatest WrestleMania? No, I don't think it's in the top 10. I would probably say it's somewhere around the 15 to 16 mark if you count night 1 and 2. As far as if you're going to list the 40 WrestleManias, just off the top of my head, I would say that this one, both nights would be around number 15 or 16. So that's still pretty good. It's in the upper half, but I don't think it's in the top 10. But still, I mean, it wasn't. There's been plenty of worse WrestleManias. There's been plenty of forgettable WrestleManias, or like in the case of WrestleMania 13, you basically had a one-match WrestleMania. The Austin Brett match was the only match that really stands out, except maybe the six-man tag with Ahmed Johnson and Farouk. AJ Norris is checking in. WWE is back, not garbage anymore. Vince is dead. Paul is better. Yeah, and this is AJ is basically speaking the voice of the voiceful, because a lot of fans were basically saying that. And to tell you the truth, the WWE, between Cody's speech and Heyman's speech and everybody's goddamn speech, they pretty much were saying that this is the company line now, that they're not really burying Vince so much as that they're just putting Paul Levesque over and over and over. And so subconsciously what it's basically saying is, yes, Vince is dead, or the Vince regime is dead. But I'd say this, folks, remember, Vince McMahon is still Triple H's father-in-law. He's still Stephanie McMahon's father. Do you think that what you're watching doesn't have his fingerprints or traces of his DNA? I mean, it literally has traces of his DNA still on it. If we're talking about Stephanie McMahon, I mean, that's his flesh and blood. Interesting that Shane McMahon has not been brought back into the mix, right? So, I mean, I think that people, the wrestlers and Paul Heyman and everybody wants to get away from Vince, which is totally understandable. But at the end of the day, this is still a Vince McMahon creation, and we can kind of sell ourselves on thinking that Vince has got nothing to do with this. But in the way, it's like he does. So I don't know what else to tell you. But yeah, guys, if you want to chime in, if you have a 5-star system or an A to F system, I would, like I said, I'd probably give this night a 4 out of 5. Had they swerved us and had they made Roman beat Cody again, I probably would have dropped that to a 3. But I think they did the right thing. They had the title change. It was a very fun main event with all the cameos. The last time they did something like that I remember was when Triple H himself fought Sting, and that's going on 10 years ago. So I thought that this was good. I thought it was a good pay-per-view, a good second night. I do feel like the second night was stronger than the first night. I don't think the first night was bad. I'm just looking at some of the chats on Facebook here. People are kind of excited about all this. People are happy. They don't want the part-time champion. They did mention something last night. I think it was McAfee said something about Roman Reigns is fighting leukemia as we speak, and I don't know if he was going through a bout with leukemia, which affected him. He looked great. I mean, Roman looked a little bit smaller than usual, but I guess you could also say that was a good thing, because he looked, ready to fight or whatever. But to me, it could also be where they just say that in order to give Roman an out clause, some sympathy for Roman, because we could see Roman Reigns going away for a few months. We could see him coming back. We could see him going babyface. We could see him and Rock having their match either at WrestleMania next year or SummerSlam. I mean, I think that Rock right now, if ever Rock is going to wrestle again, this would be the time for him to do it. Michael AJ says Seth and Cody buried the hatchet and Drew signed Fight Punk now. So yeah, if CM Punk is ready to go, which symbolically, when he took off his arm brace, maybe that was CM Punk basically saying, I'm ready to fight, I'm ready to wrestle. And you're basically saying Seth and Cody buried the hatchet. Yeah, it seems to be that way. And now, Seth has his own problems. I mean, I think with Seth losing tonight to our buddy there, Drew McIntyre, and then Drew losing to Damian Priest, we could go with a thing where Seth has his own issues. Are they going to keep it that Cody's more or less the SmackDown champion and Damian Priest is the Raw champion? I'm not terribly sold on Damian Priest. My buddy there in Pennsylvania, Jonathan, says that Damian Priest is a great guy and he's known him since 2007. But Shane McKenna, my buddy in the wrestling fans group, Shane's a guy who's actually come out to Jacksonville, Florida to spend time with Mike Messier, going to see AEW in person at Daly's Place. Shane McKenna says, I thought night 2 was 10 times better than night 1. Your thoughts? I don't think I'd say 10 times better, Shane. I get your point. I would give night 1 a 3.5 out of 5, and I give night 2 a 4 out of 5. So that's not 10 times better, but it's half a star better. I do think it was better. I don't think it was 10 times better. In fact, I rewatched sitting in a Whataburger today, believe it or not. I was using my trusty phone and a little stand to watch the Cody, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns Rock tag match in the middle of the afternoon today. And I liked it. I mean, I thought it was actually pretty good. And I know that the match was long, but I think on its own, that tag match from last night was actually a lot of fun. So I do think it was better. To answer your question, Shane, I don't think it was 10 times better. What do you think of Cody thanking Bruce Pritchard and Triple H? It's funny, Golf Franchise. This first 6 minutes of this little podcast, I actually was on mute, and it was one of our other watchers here who, Mr. Rombom, smartened me up to the fact that I had my mute button on. So thanks to him, but I feel like a goof because I was basically saying all these intelligent things for 6 minutes and nobody could hear me. If Mike Messier talks into a broken microphone, is he still talking? The answer is yes. But basically, I was saying I didn't think that Cody, I thought it was too much. I thought Cody thanking Bruce Pritchard and Triple H, I think you can do that stuff off camera. I think when these guys become too self-congratulatory, I don't like it. I think I kind of miss the days of wrestling when, Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen were the top guys in the NWA, and we didn't think about who was the commissioner of WCW Saturday Night or NWA Saturday Night. If you catch what I'm saying, basically you might see Bob Geigel once a year for something, getting smacked around by Magnum TA Nikita Koloff, or Jack Tunney would have maybe twice a year. You'd see Jack Tunney in some office somewhere with some important announcement. I just think that the whole thing that really Eric Bischoff started with the authority figure, I don't think it's good for wrestling. I think the authority figure should be the heels or a manager or something like that. I just think that it's too self-indulgent. And in this case, with Bruce Pritchard and Paul Levesque, that's like real life behind the scene guys. I just think it's too self-congratulatory and it breaks the fourth wall too much. I mean, you don't go see a movie and at the end of the movie they say, hey, let's all have the characters break out a character and thank the director or thank the screenwriter. Let's see. Seth needs to heal up. Yeah, I don't know the extent if Seth is legitimately hurt or not. He probably is. Priest deserved it. He worked hard, put Finn and Bad Bunny over twice. I wasn't a fan of that, of putting Bad Bunny over. See, that's the type of thing that I still hold against a wrestler. Like if you're putting over your rock star buddy or your whatever type of music Bad Bunny does. I don't sit there and listen to Bad Bunny, but I did watch their match. It was fun, especially for the people there on the island. But to me, I'm old school. I don't think that wrestlers who want to be taken seriously should be losing matches to non-wrestlers. Call me crazy. I mean, if they had that same match and Damian Priest somehow won, then I would have appreciated it more. But I think when you put a guy in there, Damian Priest is 280, 290 pounds. And let's see him. What's this Bad Bunny? 150, 175 at the most? I just think it takes away some legitimacy. I just do. And I mean, I know that's old school, archaic thinking, but what can I tell you? Was Seth selling his injury or the match, or did he re-injure his knee? Hard to tell, buddy. He was limping and got help in and out of the ring. Once again, really hard to tell. I think they've played games with us in the past where sometimes they try to – it's funny with wrestlers. If they're really hurt, they try to make it seem like they're not. And if they're not hurt, they try to make it seem like they are. So in this situation, it could be one or the other. I really don't know. Same thing with Bayley. I mean, it seemed at times in Bayley's match that she was really hurt and kind of sluggish, but maybe she was really hurt. So, I mean, that's credit to the wrestlers that they can play that stuff. AJ Norris says, good sportsmanship, buddy. I'm not sure what you're talking about with that. I probably said something. Was it the Damian Priest that had the good sportsmanship? I'm not sure. Was it the Cody Rhodes thanking Paul Levesque? I'm not sure, buddy. Yeah, that ending was like the Ewok party at the end of Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Perfect. That's a great one, Golf Franchise. And I think Golf Franchise has been watching some of my other videos. You might have seen my movie reviews on One Mike Messier. This is One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan. Over on One Mike Messier, I pretty much see almost every single movie that comes out in theaters. Dune 2, The Matrix re-release. So if you like this type of ranting and raving, and if you like movies, I do a lot of movie reviews on the other channel. One Mike Messier. Mikey, WWE going into new attitude era, buddy. Hey, look, they're having a good upswing here, and I hope that the momentum continues. And they're clearly trying to divide themselves from Loverboy Vince. And no, I mean, this is a bit macabre, gentlemen, and I know it's not a nice way to think, but I keep thinking that maybe Vince will Jimmy Snuka himself out of this situation, either the judge or whoever determines this. But I guess if it's settled out of court, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But Jimmy Snuka didn't go to trial because the judge found him mentally unfit to do trial when they reopened the murder case with was it Nancy Ortega, the woman that died back in 82 or 83. I kind of think that Vince might try to pull that one, to tell you the truth, because Vince hasn't looked too good recently, and who knows? And then we basically know that Snuka passed away. So I'm not trying to wish ill on anybody. I'm just saying that that's where I think that might be headed. And it seems like the people at WWE, those left behind, including Stephanie McMahon, the daughter, and including her husband, Triple H, they're all more than happy to move on. They're all more than happy to move on from Vince. None of them are terribly, throwing themselves on the casket of Vince McMahon's career, right? Vince being gone is best for business. He created WWE. That's all he will be remembered for. And, this is interesting because I think the older the wrestling fan is, or WWE fan, and that's another thing. They keep wanting to say pro wrestling, and they're trying to bury the term sports entertainment as if Vince was the only one that used that term for the last 30 years. But it seems like they're more than happy to ditch on Vince. Apparently, someone on Instagram today who might have been Vince McMahon's trainer was kind of trying to defend Vince, and it kind of got kind of funny. So I don't know, folks. I mean, I just think if you're an older fan and you just grew up listening to Vince McMahon talking and talking and talking, you know what I mean? It's just interesting that we won't be hearing that stuff anymore. Any more comments, guys? Please. I'll bounce off any more comments, and after that, I think I'll just wrap it up because we got a new champion. I think the biggest question that we know in wrestling, especially at times like this, is what's next. What's next for Cody Rhodes? What's next for Roman Reigns? Do they rematch this thing? Is it like the old days, like when they would have The Rock and Stone Cold do a Backlash, rematch, or do they kind of go their separate ways? Do they put Roman on the shelf for a little while and let him do something else and maybe come back? Gunther versus Priest. That's interesting. Does Gunther get raised up a bit and go after Damian Priest? I'm interested to see how this Damian Priest does as a supposed world champion. Cody will face Jacob Fatu. I believe that there was talk that Jacob Fatu's been signed. But I mean, are they going to skyrocket Jacob Fatu to a world title series right away without going through the proper, in the ranks? My buddy Gonzo is here. Hey, Gonzo, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, pal?
I thought it was good, man. What did you think overall of the show?
I liked it, dude. I thought it was good. I especially the main event. I thought there was going to be like some surprises. Obviously, I thought Cena was going to come out and stuff, but Undertaker totally shocked me, and that totally shocked me. I didn't think Undertaker was coming out.
You know what? I actually got spoiled. Who spoiled it for me?
Who?
Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer.
Well, how did that happen?
I put on the Wrestling Observer YouTube channel, and Alvarez and I think it was Alvarez and one of the other. I don't think it was Meltzer. He's got some other guys. Mike Cipravini, I think is the guy's name, and they were discussing last night's show, and then basically looking forward to tonight's show. and Alvarez basically said, "Well, I saw the format, and last night's
No.
tag last night's tag team match was supposed to go 45 minutes, and it did. And tonight, if I were going to say anything, it would be that they're leaving about 45 minutes for this world title match. And if you're ever going to see guys like The Undertaker and Steve Austin, and he basically ruined, like, he didn't say who was going to win, but he basically did
Yeah.
mention, he mentioned Cena, he mentioned The Rock, he mentioned Taker, he did mention Austin, and Austin did not show up. But
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
he basically ruined it. He basically spoiled it, Alvarez. So I guess in those guys who always get slack that they claim to know all this inside stuff and they get stuff wrong a lot. But in this situation, Alvarez actually got something right. So it spoiled it a bit for me.
I mean, the only reason why I thought that Cena and Austin was because on Raw, when The Rock and Cody had that thing where he beat him up at the end of the show, heard people talking about it online the next day, and I didn't even notice it when I was watching the show, but they had a truck that was like perfectly lit. You saw that? And The Rock and Austin and Cena were on it. So I was thinking to myself, Cena and Austin might come out and help him. But when it was The Undertaker, I was like, no shit, dude. I just didn't expect it.
I did like it because it was kind of basically saying like Cena and Undertaker are on the side of let these guys fight on their own.
Yeah.
Like let these guys sell it mano y mano. And in that regard, Austin would have fit in just fine on that side of things. But at some point, I mean, we could have had, Hulk Hogan and I was gonna say somebody from Hogan's generation, but they're all dead. I was gonna say Piper, and then I thought Bundy.
Maybe
Then I thought,
Hacksaw.
right,
Hacksaw Jim Duggan, bro. Oh,
yeah. So I couldn't think of like a top heel, maybe Ted DiBiase, or I couldn't think of. I mean, maybe Rikishi could come in for the Bloodline.
yeah.
But anyway, I thought it was fine. I thought it was very ceremonial, like, and this is, I think I was saying this to you yesterday when we did this last night, was I feel like this was a babyface weekend when when a title in the old territory days was vacant, they'd usually give it to a babyface to make the fans happy. And I was making the comparison that with all the Vince stuff, the whole federation wants to put a happy face on the weekend. You know what I mean?
That makes sense, and honestly, like the thing, two things. One thing I realized right away, after watching that, I'm like, man, it really does feel like a new era. Like, I don't think, Vince did that finish with Bret Hart in '94 at WrestleMania 10, where all the guys came out and held him up.
Oh yeah.
But but Vince just wouldn't have, he just wouldn't really book like that, especially now, and I'm not even so sure that Vince would have put the belt on him. You know what I mean? You know how vindictive Vince is. So, in that sense, it felt like a new era. But the other thing too is like, I told you I thought Roman was going to win, and I honestly felt like I felt like Roman had to win before, right? But then after I watched the match and everything, and after like as the show is finishing and stuff, I'm thinking to myself like, this is like a real life situation of like you deserve it. Like when the fans chant you deserve it. Like this is a real life situation of that. Like that whole thing at the end really made me feel like this motherfucker has worked so hard for this shit. And he fucking had to leave the company and go start a new company with these other guys and fucking, he smashed Triple H's throne, all that shit. And then he comes back and it's like 2 years he had to go through this shit, or a year and a half or whatever, to get to finally win the belt. And it just felt like this motherfucker really did deserve it. And he really is like, he's just as because I feel like Roman Reigns was professional as champion. Like he looked like a champion, he acted like a champion. When he did media on anybody's show or whatever, he acted like he was totally professional. Cody Rhodes is going to be the same exact thing. Like he's so professional,
Yeah, a friend of mine who was actually at WrestleMania tonight, my buddy Tommy DiNucci, that I do the And Action Film podcast with. Years ago, he was saying that Cody was like the baby face Ric Flair, like with all the suits basically, and that Cody had that same kind of slick style, but with a humble instead of the Ric Flair arrogance, it was a humility and a down to earthness, but still in that polished package. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, Gonzo, I don't like wearing fucking suits. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, I really don't. I don't. I'll do it
Yeah.
for a wedding or a funeral or a
Yeah.
special event. But I mean, like for me, a sport coat and a nice pair of slacks and a decent pair of shoes. But I hate wearing stuff like that because it just feels to me it's not my personality or how I feel good about myself wearing stuff like that. So for
Hmm.
him to walk around these fucking wrestling arenas and doing all these talk shows and this custom made suit that like takes an hour to put on every day, it's not something that I would particularly want to do myself, but it does make for a good image.
Oh, for sure, and that's what I'm saying. Like that's that's because in UFC, right? There
Yeah.
was like a shift in UFC where guys started wearing suits and stuff to the press conferences and shit. Like they weren't doing that 15, 20 years ago, but then, guys started wearing suits and stuff. And I feel like it's kind of the same thing here. Like Cody Rhodes is always wearing a suit because he's going to be the ultimate professional about it, and he
Yeah.
wants to, and that he probably feels good wearing the suit. You know what I mean? He's got some cool suits. So, but that the whole night really, I thought it was better than last night, and I didn't think there was anything that was really bullshit on the show.
What would
I
you
really
give it
can't
out
think
of?
of anything.
What do you give it out of the 5 stars? The 5 store. How many stars out of 5?
I'm gonna go 4.5.
Okay, that's pretty
Yeah,
strong.
I'm gonna go 4.5. I think that's fair because the other thing too is like the Bailey and Io Sky match that legitimately like blew my expectations. Like I was like, this is
Right.
a great match. Like I didn't expect it to be that good. So that was another thing.
Or my buddy there, Shane McKenna, in the wrestling fans group, thinks night 2 was 10 times better than night 1. I actually said when we did this last night, I gave night 1 3.5, and I gave night 4 out of
You gave
5.
tonight
But
4,
maybe,
yeah.
yeah, and I think one thing maybe was it really seemed like a shorter night, unless I'm missing something. Was there only 6 matches
There's
tonight?
only 6, yeah.
Was there more last night? Was there 8 last
7.
night?
That's 7.
7. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's read this statement here from Michael AJ Norris. I can see Randy Orton turn on Cody for the championship because Orton wanted revenge. They had that group years ago, right?
Yeah. That's how
Legacy,
he came into WWE.
right? Well, he was in with Bob Holly before that. Remember, he was in the tag team
Oh,
with Bob
well,
Holly.
I'm only saying that because I heard them say it on TV. I don't even know. I wasn't
It
watching
was,
it. I wasn't watching wrestling back then,
yeah.
so
The way that I remember Cody coming in, he kind of just came in. I guess he had done FCW or something like that, and he started popping up, and then he was basically like the rookie, Cody the rookie. And I want to say maybe his first match on TV, and anyone can correct me if I'm remembering this wrong, but I want to say like his first match on Raw or SmackDown was against Randy Orton, and it was more or less like a kind of like an established guy versus kind of a new guy. And then Cody was a babyface, and him and Bob Holly became the tag team champions, and they had like this student mentor thing. And then I think somehow they got into a feud with uh, Ted DiBiase Jr. Was that his name?
mhm.
Like the
Yeah,
right who
yeah.
was doing the $1 million champion. So somehow, and I didn't even see this pay per view, but I remember reading about it. It was supposed to be like DiBiase was going to choose a mystery partner to challenge for the tag team titles on pay per view of Cody and Hardcore Holly, the defending champions. And then when they all get out to the ring, DiBiase doesn't have a partner. And I guess they started the match, and like Bob Holly started with DiBiase, and then when Bob Holly tried to tag Cody, Cody like punched him or slapped him, and it was quickly revealed that Cody was turning on him to join DiBiase. And
Oh,
so
got it.
it was kind of a cool, and I got to dig that up because that's somewhere around 2007 or 2008. I got to find exactly what pay-per-view, because I don't think I ever watched the footage. I just heard about it. And then Cody and DiBiase became like a heel tag team, and I think they had the tag belts because basically Cody flipped and took his half of the title and basically handed it to DiBiase, right? And left Holly out in the cold. And then I think it wasn't until later, 6 months or a year later, or whatever, when Randy Orton jumped in with those guys and they started the Legacy group, which were all second or third generation guys, and they had a fourth guy in there for like 2 weeks who was like a Samoan guy. Yeah,
Really?
if you look into Legacy, they had a fourth guy that was in the bloodline, like one of those Samoans who kind of came in for a cup of coffee and left. And he might have been one of the Deuce and Domino guys. It might have been the same dude, like one of like maybe Snuka's son or something like that. But there was a fourth Legacy guy for like 2 weeks. Let's go. AJ's got a bunch of comments. Orton wanted revenge, and he never got a one-on-one match with Roman for a title shot. It was LA Knight, AJ Styles, and Orton in that that four corners match a few months ago. I remember that. And basically, Orton will be like, he took me out, and it was my story. You had yours last year, and you forced it over mine. So basically, and this is a fine prediction. I mean, Randy Orton did not take the pin tonight in the Logan Paul title match, so Randy kind of comes out untouched as usual. Even if he had gotten pinned, it's Randy Orton, so they can main event him anytime. But basically, to make Randy Orton turn heel and say that I should have been the guy to beat Roman, and I'm the real, dreamer here or whatever, and I gave you the big start with Legacy 15 years ago, and you're forever indebted to me or whatever. So I think that's fine.
That could work for
Yeah, that's good booking, AJ. And then he says, Mikey, Stephanie is back in charge in WWE because she's been on TV in the Hall of Fame now. Night 2, it seems fans were happy to see her in the ring, and she was happy to be there. It's a complicated, buddy. Here's the thing. At least with it's very complicated. My thing, Gonzo, is a daughter looking the other way when her father is doing horrible things is not uncommon. And I think that's tough for even a grown woman, Stephanie McMahon, 40 years old, whatever she is.
47.
Your father's, right, okay, 47.
I just looked it up, and I was surprised.
Yeah, she looks good. And she's a mother of 3. I think she and Triple H, that I'll still call him that, they had 3 daughters, I think. Yep. And I think it's a bit, maybe not unfair, or maybe unfair, but unrealistic for anyone in the authorities or Janelle Grant's lawyer or any of the fans to think, well, if Stephanie McMahon knew that there was bad things going on with her father, she should have blah, 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 called the police or called a lawyer or ratted him out. I mean, I just think that reality is, I think in families where there's 1,000th of the money and power and influence of the McMahons, I think daughters cover up for daddy all the time, right? So I don't personally hold it against Stephanie if she knew about Vince's treachery and was either afraid to say something, didn't want to say something, trying to protect her father from the truth. I don't hold that against her as much as other people might. What do you think about that?
I agree with that. And also, I think that I find it hard to believe that there were many people, and Stephanie would be included in this, that knew all the details of what was going on there. I think a lot of people looked at it like Vince is having an inappropriate relationship with this girl, and she works here now, and it's weird or whatever. Him and Linda are still married, but he's got this girl. But I don't think that anybody knew that he was like shitting on her and like, doing all of that other fucking horrible shit. Like, I find it hard to believe that many people actually knew that. I think people closest to Vince probably knew that, but I would imagine that circle was pretty small. And I would also imagine that a lot of the stuff in that complaint or in the lawsuit now, whatever, where Vince was like texting her and saying like, "Oh, I told all these people and I showed all these people and this and that." I honestly think a lot of that was, or most of that was just lies, like him just fucking with her and grooming her and shit, trying to make her feel good, like, oh, a whole team of fucking producers and TV guys are all fucking drooling over you and this and that, and this referee's going to the bathroom and jerking off to your picture. Like, I think that was his sick way of like grooming her and trying to like boost her ego, you know?
Or to make her feel self-conscious, like she couldn't
That, yeah.
make her feel like she had no friends there, or that she had been typecast as this role in this situation. Basically, like Vince is painting a portrait that everybody knows that you're a whore or a slut or you're my
Yeah.
bitch or whatever the thinking or the terminology that he would use, so that she feels like she can't report him or go to anyone for help because everyone's against her already.
I mean, yeah, it's probably all of those things. Like, that's the thing. Neither one of us know how somebody like that would think. Neither
Right.
one of us would be doing that stuff. But obviously, it's all kinds of fucking crazy shit could make somebody say that type of shit to somebody. And, it's weird. It's
And that's
fucking
why
really weird.
that's why when people and I get it, we want to enjoy the WrestleMania weekend, but this, I feel like these guys, meaning WWE, they did not get into the Vince story. They did not get into the accusations, but kind of beating us over the head as fans. This is the Paul Levesque era. Like, basically, I think Cole started throwing that term out there either at the Hall of Fame or last night, and by tonight now it's an official thing, right? Like like tonight they've cemented it as that's an
Yeah.
official
Yeah.
deal. It's not the PG era anymore. It's not the Attitude Era 2.0. It's not the Rock era. They could call it the Rock era because Rock was all over this weekend too. But they're basically calling it the Paul Levesque era, and I think that's great as long as Paul is totally clean too. Because I'd hate to see it where if Paul Levesque gets dragged through the mud in the Vince stuff, then we got to call it somebody else's era, right? Like, when does
Uh,
this?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's probably going to be people that come out of this that weren't as clean as what it may appear to, but they're just going to get by it. And Triple H could be one of those people where maybe he knew a little bit more than what, is being revealed or whatever. And he just kind of skates by or whatever. And then there's probably going to be people too that take a fall, or somehow maybe take a fall for Vince or whatever. But I don't know. I feel like everybody's going to turn on Vince, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Well, Johnny Ace already did.
Johnny Ace already did, and there's really like not necessarily any way to prove what somebody knew or what somebody didn't know. So if everybody's like, bro, like even including Stephanie, including Triple H, including everybody, like, dude, we didn't know he was doing any of that shit. Like, we didn't know that. Unless there's
Right.
some kind of fucking text exchange or an email or something where it's like, okay, totally revealed. Like, everybody can probably just say, I didn't fucking know he was doing that. And just everybody throw Vince under the bus.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that's the way it's going because, dude, they brought Bruce Pritchard out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Paul Heyman talked about Brock Lesnar in his Hall of Fame speech. I guess last night at that press conference, which I didn't see. Oh shit!
Hey, Gonzo, let me chime in. My buddy here, Tommy DiNucci, did go to WrestleMania. So Tommy, a WrestleMania report from Tom DiNucci, filmmaker. Tom, are you in the venue of the hotel? Where are you right now, buddy?
I am here at the Ritz-Carlton in Philadelphia. We just made it back after a very wild couple days here at WrestleMania. And let me tell you something. Night one was a little flat. Night two did not disappoint. And I feel like the new WWE regime decided to go with an all-love ending. It's all love. Very reminiscent of WrestleMania 10. I felt like Bret
yes,
Hart
that's
in
what I
there
said. That's
with all
what
the
I
baby
said.
faces. That's right, brother. And also, kind of remind me a little bit of it's just nice to see the baby faces get a little due once in a while.
Tommy, what can you tell us that
The post
you
WrestleMania wrap up show. Oh, I like it. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
that's all right. Tell me some stuff that you might have seen that us at home didn't.
Well, there were a lot of botches, production wise. Like originally the mic ring wasn't on, so the first couple minutes on night one you couldn't hear the ring. There was a lot of like lighting snafus. There was a lot of like music snafus. A lot of times the screen would freeze. A lot of production mishaps. This was kind of funny that no one would have seen at home, but the Prime Energy or the Prime truck that had the big bottle on it got
Yes.
stuck in the back, and they couldn't maneuver the vehicle. They must have did a 700-point turn, and the crowd started chanting, "You can't drive! You can't drive!"
Oh my
So,
god!
like the feeling when you're trying to back out of a spot and people are watching you and it's awkward. Imagine
Yes.
that with 70,000 people screaming at you. This poor bastard. But yeah, people were booing him. Yeah, you can't drive, chance. So it was a lot of fun. I gotta say, this was my first WrestleMania, and it was really nice just to kind of. The energy is unmatchable. Crowd was really friendly. There were no fights. I said to myself, Philadelphia, they're known to have their tough crowds and feisty, lots of fights, but there was all love, man. It was all love at WrestleMania 40.
That's awesome.
Tommy, they were complaining the first night a lot about the weather, which I thought they should have just shut up about it. You told me through text that the weather was not really a factor. What was the weather like on both nights for you?
Here's the deal. If you can't handle the weather, don't go to fucking WrestleMania.
In a stadium.
Right.
I mean, it's a stadium show. And, look, was it freezing? No. Here's how I gauge temperature when it comes to cold. If you can see your breath, it's cold.
Yeah.
We couldn't see our breath. It was fine. Like I had as you can see, I had a hoodie on, a leather jacket. I put my long john underwear on. That's a little pro tip there. You got to have your extra pair of pants on. 2 pairs of socks. I'm good to go, man. So to me, it's like if you were cold, you're just a dumbass because you didn't fucking prepare with the proper
100%.
clothing.
100%.
Tommy and I will be doing a deep dive on Tuesday, I believe, because Tommy and I do the A and Action Film Podcast, and this week will be a special WrestleMania tribute podcast on Tom DiNucci Film channel, YouTube channel.
I can't wait, Mike.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. And Tommy, before we do that, let me ask you: was there a favorite match or two for you on both nights?
Guys, favorite match?
Oh, the last match was the best one.
Yeah, I mean Cody's match was definitely the best match. Overall, I'd say Cody versus Roman took the cake. The main event of night 2 really did it. But night 1, I gotta say, let's see, what was my favorite part of night 1? I'm drawing a blank right now.
The Rock was the main event. I mean, The Rock was out there for a good 45 minutes.
I got to tell you, The Rock disappeared at a certain point for a good 5 minutes, and I swear he was huffing oxygen underneath the ring or something. I think he was a little gassed out. I think he hadn't wrestled in a while. But my favorite match of night 1 was probably Mommy and Becky Lynch had a great match to start the event. I think that was a really nice table setter match. As far as just good matches go, I'd say that was my favorite match of night 1. But listen, guys, I got to jump. I'm here with some buddies. I just wanted to come on and say hi. We didn't get to meet, sir. What is your name?
I'm Gonzo. Ian.
You
can call me Ian or Gonzo.
It's a pleasure to meet you, brother. You two have a great time. Thank you. And you two have a nice time chatting WrestleMania. And Mikey, I will see you on Tuesday on And Action.
Sounds good, brother. Thanks.
All right.
Later.
Take care, guys.
AJ, we didn't get to your question about Bailey for Tommy, but when we do our podcast on Tuesday on Tom DiNucci, DENUCCI YouTube channel, we'll get to that question. Tom is actually pretty successful in filmmaking. He's directed the likes of Kevin Nash, Megan Fox, Don Johnson a couple of times in Vault. His Megan Fox movie is out. That's Johnny and Clyde. And The Collective actually had Mercedes Moné in it.
Yeah.
So Tommy's a New England guy, and that's where we were friends. And I watched a lot of WrestleManias at Tommy's place, going back to the Seth Rollins over Brock and Roman.
And a Roman? Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So that's 10 years ago, right? 9 or 10 years ago.
Not all 9, yeah.
it's interesting, man. As we get older, time just goes by so quick because
Of course,
that
yeah.
that I can vividly remember Sting and Triple H was still wrestling, and Nash and Hall, and Hall's not with us
Hogan.
anymore. Hogan, Six, and
That was actually my first WrestleMania back. Like I didn't watch wrestling from probably, I'll say, 2003, 2004 until 2014, and then I started watching it in 2014, and that WrestleMania was the first one I watched in like 10 years.
right. Um, AJ has a question for you, Gonzo, and he also asked me, because of Michael AJ Norris, I started to watch the NXT pay-per-view today. So that would be Sunday. I was watching Saturday afternoon's NXT pay-per-view. I got up to the women's match, and I was so excited to see JCJ, I had to turn the TV off and come back to it later. Because of all the NXT women, I'm a big fan of JCJ. She used to be in a group with Mandy Rose and Gigi Allen. And I really think that JCJ could be pulled up to the main roster and challenge Rhea Ripley or challenge Bailey at any time. So AJ Norris has been telling me that I got to watch the North American champion, who is this really big dude who is kind of like the darker toned Brock Lesnar, basically. Oba Femi. It's a big jacked up guy who I guess he's the guy that beat Dominic for the North American title. And I've seen him once or twice at some of the NXT house shows. Oba Femi, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So AJ's a big fan. Do you watch? So what he was getting at is, do you watch NXT, Gonzo, on a regular?
No, I don't. I should though. I probably should.
I'm a very particular guy. I go to the NXT house shows. I really enjoy going to them. I think I'm probably going to stick to Gainesville and Jacksonville for a while. I did do like the NXT Florida tour last year, where I was going to Orlando and Lakesville and like pretty much everywhere they went. I went for a couple of months, but after doing that once, I feel like Jacksonville is so close, I have to go. And then Gainesville is about an hour and a half or 2 hours drive. And Gainesville is a nice town. That's the college town for the Gators. So I feel like I'm going to do the Gainesville and the Jacksonville shows for a while. But I don't watch NXT weekly shows. So when everybody else at these NXT shows are whooping that trick and everyone's chanting and cheering, and I'm like in my own little world of, I'm in this fucking vacuum of ignorance, but I still enjoy it because I see the same wrestlers pretty much. You know, Braun Breaker was there for a while, and then he kind of phases out of those shows. But Lexus King, Brian Pillman Jr. is in there now, and they. One thing I got to say, they have so many women in NXT. It's, if you like pretty women who are athletic, go to the NXT shows because they have tons of women's matches, 6 women tags, tag teams, one-on-ones. And it's just basically when you go see an NXT house show, half the roster is women.
I mean, honestly, the little that I have watched of it, I've noticed there's a lot of women. I've definitely noticed that because I've seen some highlights of them showing like NXT and seeing a lot of tag matches with women.
Yeah, and even on this channel, if you go to my shorts section, I basically take still photographs. They don't let you take video at the NXT shows, but you can take still photographs. And depending on the venue that you're at, some of them have tougher security than others because they actually have guys walking around looking over your shoulder to see if you're taking video or still pictures, and they'll tell you to stop, So I've just become pretty respectful. So I have a little system where I take the still photos on my iPhone, and then I make like little videos, with my editing program to make the still photos come to life as best I can with some music and stuff. So if you go to the stills, the shorts section on this channel, I've got plenty of still photos from the NXT shows. So AJ Norris has got another question for Gonzo. Gonzo, CM Punk screwed Drew McIntyre. That was good booking. Drew McIntyre injured CM Punk and bad mouths him and rants about it, and then wins over Seth and pushes the title belt in his face. And CM Punk was like, "Fuck you! If I had it," and he pulled the arm brace off and attacked Drew with the arm brace. Drew is resigned now. We get mega feud for Punk. So basically, he said Drew is re-signed, not resigned. So Drew has
re-signed, yeah.
Yeah, Drew has re-signed to WWE, not going to AEW or anywhere else. And Drew McIntyre, who I've been big on for a while, I feel like he was a guy that, I don't think he dropped the ball. I think the WWE kind of dropped the ball on him a couple of times.
Pandemic too, bro. Pandemic too. He got fucked by the pandemic.
He beat Brock Lesnar for the title at the pandemic.
Yeah, right.
And that's when he should have beaten him at Orlando or Tampa, right? And that was But
and that's
instead,
what I was supposed to go to.
Right. And then by the time they got around to it the next year, this is what I remember of that Drew McIntyre run. He had it. I want to say that he lost it to Randy Orton for a week, then got it back like a week later from Randy Orton. Like they flipped the title on 2 consecutive Raws. Like he dropped it to Randy and then he got it right back. And then Drew dropped the title to The Miz. And then I think he's because they went from Drew dropped it to The Miz, and then like a week later, The Miz dropped it to Bobby Lashley. They went from heel Lashley to heel, like heel Miz to heel Lashley.
In like
which
2
didn't
weeks.
Yeah. And then so now Drew was chasing after Lashley, but Lashley had never beaten Drew. Lashley beat the interim champion. They used Miz as a transitional champion for whatever reason to go from Drew to Miz for a week and then Lashley, which was odd, but that's what they did. And
Very
then
convoluted.
Yeah, a little bit. And then they had Drew challenge Lashley at Mania in Tampa the year that they came back with they sold, a third of the seats or whatever, right? And it rained. And the first match back in Mania was Drew challenging Lashley. And as soon as they said this is going to be the first match of the 2-night WrestleMania, it's like, okay, Drew's not going to get this title. And I think they should have booked Drew to win that title. But instead, they had him submit to a full Nelson to Bobby Lashley.
Oh, jeez.
So my opinion is that maybe they wanted, I don't know what they expected from Drew. Maybe they were waiting for him to sign a 5-year contract or a 10-year contract. But I thought he was a guy that he was right up there with Roman for the face of the company 3 or 4 years ago. They went with Roman. And Drew kind of got left in the shuffle, but now he's got a title again. So,
well, he had a title again because your favorite took the title from him.
Damian Priest, you're right.
Yeah,
I forgot. I blacked it out. Yeah, Damian Priest, who I'm not a fan of. Damian Priest with the assist from CM Punk. And this
that was great though. That to me, that was great. I love that whole thing. I loved it.
Well, what did you love about
it? Drew beat Seth, which I thought should happen because Seth took a fucking beating last night, right? So I felt like Drew should beat him. Drew beats him, and then Drew's doing some great shit, talking shit to CM Punk over there. Like I like that. And then when CM Punk fucking snapped and attacked him, I was like, oh shit! Like I kind of didn't expect it. And then and that made me forget about Damian Priest. Like I totally forgot about him when, I'm just like, holy shit, CM Punk and fucking Drew's about to fight and CM Punk's arm's hurt. And I kept thinking about how his arm was fucked up. And then and then Priest came out. I liked it. I thought it was good.
Okay. I would ask you this, and I'm not trying to trap you. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
With there's 4 guys, right, in this scenario: Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the baby faces and who are the heels in that?
I I think the baby faces are supposed to be Punk and Seth Rollins, and the heels are supposed to be Priest and McIntyre.
The heels are Priest and McIntyre.
That's what
But
I think.
but one heel, Priest, just beat the other heel, McIntyre, for the title.
Yeah, but it was also Money in the Bank.
I
So
know.
doesn't it kind of go out the window for that?
They're heels, but they're not aligned with each
Yeah,
other.
they're not aligned. Yeah.
And then you got CM Punk and Seth as both the baby faces who have heat. So I'm not saying it's bad. It's just tweenerville. Everyone's a tweener, is what it seems to me.
I'll tell you the thing that I liked about it the most is I felt like it added so much to the CM Punk Drew feud. Like when CM Punk comes back, I
Right.
feel like they're gonna have real beef. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things that have been happening, and that added to it very well. Like you just cost them the belt. So
Is a CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre? Do you think those guys will be a good fit in an actual match? Like just when they actually ring the bell, is that a good setup to have CM Punk and Drew McIntyre go at it?
I think it really just depends on what kind of shape CM Punk's in. You know, if
Okay.
if he gets himself in really good shape and does whatever he has to do and can be in the best shape that he can be in, I think it could be really good. But, if he gets hurt, if he's not in great shape or whatever, and he gets hurt again or something, that could happen too. So, I like it if CM Punk's healthy and he's in good shape.
I think it's not a match that I would just by looking at these two guys necessarily need to see, just because physically Drew is such a beast and CM Punk's more of a talking wrestler. You know what I mean? Like he's more of a kind of in that Cody Rhodes category where the build up to the match is often better than the actual match. Like I don't think anyone.
No, I agree with you. I do agree with you on that because I also think that when I look at them, I wonder if CM Punk would actually be able to give Drew his finisher, or if Drew's too big. Like, could CM Punk actually give him the GTS? I don't know. But the thing that I like about it is I like all the other stuff besides them wrestling. Like, I think they're both great on the mic. So them talking shit to each other and then, all those segments and that sort of stuff. I love all that shit. Like, I feel like they're really good together with that. As far as the match, though, it might suck. Who knows?
I would give it's kind of like the CM Punk versus Kevin Nash match we never had 10 or 12 years ago. As far as like Drew is kind of physically pretty comparable to Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we never got that match. I think it's interesting. I mean, believe it or not, I thought CM Punk's work at AEW was fairly good. I mean, I thought he came back with a match against Darby Allin. I thought Darby sold like hell for CM Punk, and I think Darby made CM Punk look great. And I thought that the CM Punk MJF, both the angles and the matches were great. And I also liked, kind of their two guys that are kind of similar, the John Moxley, CM Punk. I think they had like a 50-50 deal where Moxley beat Punk once in like 2.5 minutes on Dynamite, and then they had the rematch in Chicago. So they basically did 50-50 booking, but I thought it was handled well. Let's see. Michael.
The Ascension. I remember the Ascension.
Yeah, this is another big question here. Gonzo, WWE dropped the ball of Victor and Kanar, the Ascension. Try to make them look like Legion of Doom on the main roster. That was terrible. They were good in NXT. I felt, okay, here's some good stuff. I felt Vince hated Hunter's success in NXT. Try to bury any good talents he had. He took Roman from Hunter, and Hunter had Seth's. CM Punk didn't like neither back then until this year. Hunter and Punk buried the hatchet. I think Vince versus Hunter for creative control. Hunter would win. Vince feared that he fired his guys from helping him in that. And one of those guys, or two, you could say Karrion Kross was a Hunter guy that didn't seem to care for. And I would even go so far as to say that Bray Wyatt, according to this documentary and folklore, that Hunter, Triple H, Paul Levesque was a big Bray Wyatt fan, and maybe Vince did not quite get. I don't think Vince totally hated Bray Wyatt, but I don't think he quite liked him as much as Hunter did. I would guess.
I would guess that I would guess that Vince didn't really understand him and understand
Right.
his whole his whole thing. I don't think Vince really got it, but I think he's brilliant enough to know, even as old and fucking crazy as he is now, he's brilliant enough to know like Bray Wyatt was great. Like Bray Wyatt was once in a lifetime. You know what I mean?
Did you watch that doc yet?
Not yet. Not yet. I mean, it sucks too because I feel like he never got to do his best work. You know what I mean? Like it was all that, like it was there, man. Some of the shit that he did was just unbelievable. You know, he was one of the guys that when I started watching again in 2014, he was one of the first guys that like drew me in. I was like, this guy's incredible. And I just feel like he never got to do his best work. He should have beat Undertaker. You know, they had Brock beat Undertaker. I feel like that WrestleMania we were just talking about, he should have beat Undertaker, not Brock.
Yeah, my buddy Jimmy Faluca always says that too. Jimmy Faluca, who I do some other shows with, Jimmy says that he's kind of like his family is kind of friends with some of the Bray Wyatt family. Like his sister somehow is friends with maybe with Rotunda, Mika Rotunda. Maybe that's it.
Mika, yeah, that's her name.
Yes. Yeah. So
they're like they know like the radio people down here where I live and shit in Tampa. They all Mika goes on the radio with some of them guys sometimes and shit. They all know each other and stuff. So like that's how I knew about them from around here. From like they're like friends of the city and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, she was featured prominently in the doc, Mika Rotundo or Rotunda, and well-spoken young woman. I mean, she was the younger sister of these two wrestlers. You know, the guy that we formerly knew as Bo Dallas. They've been getting away from that name. Like in the doc, I keep wanting to say Bo Dallas, but that's not his real first name. Is it Tyler Rotundo?
Taylor, I think
Taylor. Okay, Taylor. Yeah. So the former Bo Dallas, Taylor Rotundo. They're not using the name Bo Dallas at all. And basically that Peacock documentary is from his point of view. I'm walking in the footsteps, or I'm processing that my older brother, my hero, my best friend has passed away. And I'm going to take you, the viewing audience of this doc, along with our mother and along with our little sister and some other key people, our dad and our uncle Barry Windham. We're going to explore my brother and what his life meant, but really like the key person in that doc in a lot of ways is Taylor Rotundo. This is my brother. He was 3 years older than me. They show these guys wrestling together in like Florida Championship Wrestling like 12 or 15 years ago, and actually Taylor had started wrestling before Bray did, or before Windham. Yeah, really? It's because he was wrestling. Taylor, the younger brother, is 3 years younger. He's wrestling first, and Windham Rotundo, aka the future Bray Wyatt, is in college playing football, and he's basically second string. Like he wasn't a starter, and he was getting pissed off. And then he comes home one weekend and he sees his younger brother wrestling for FCW, and he's like, "I got to do this." So he basically ditches. He doesn't finish college. He hops out of college because he's sick of riding the bench in football, and he just becomes a wrestler. And because he's from the Rotunda family and because he was good, he really didn't have to, as far as I can tell, jump through many hoops to get kind of put in the mix, because his younger brother was already doing it, and they knew that his grandfather's Blackjack Mulligan, his father is Mike Rotundo, his uncle is Barry Windham, so they pretty much just put him right in the mix.
Yeah. So, dude, before I get off here, because I got to get up early for work, do we want to talk about the Wednesday night thing, or do you not want to talk about that?
I'm trying to remember what the Wednesday night thing is. Coming up on AEW.
yeah.
Yeah,
Do
you
wanna
go
talk
ahead
about
and
that?
yeah, we can talk about it. You start it up and you throw out what you want to throw out, then I'll throw out what I want. Go ahead.
Well, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm sure everybody fucking knows by now, but apparently Tony Khan got pissed off because of the CM Punk interview. This is according to Dave Meltzer now. I watched the video with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer was talking about it. And normally I don't listen to Dave Meltzer. I like Brian Alvarez. I feel like he's all right, but I don't really listen to Dave Meltzer too much. But because I knew this was already confirmed, so I watched the Dave Meltzer video because I knew it was already confirmed. But anyway, he said he spoke to many people in the company, and Tony Khan got pissed off about the CM Punk interview and decided that he's going to go ahead and air the CM Punk Jungle Boy Jack Perry footage from Wembley Stadium, the backstage security camera footage on Wednesday. And then the real kick in the dick is the Young Bucks apparently are the ones that are presenting the footage and going to talk about it. And just like, I'm going to watch it. Like, and I mean, it's definitely going to pop a rating. I know that for sure. I think they might get over 1 million people on that. But my thing is, I don't think they're ever going to hold them. You know what I mean? Like, for one, they can't show that first thing on the show. It has to be like in the middle of the show or something, or maybe even at the end. But I would say the middle of the show would probably work the best, like around 9 o'clock or something, like drag people along a little bit or whatever, and then show it. But dude, I don't know, man. It's coming across as pretty petty to me, but at the same time, like, none of us know what's on that footage, so it's like it's very compelling at the same time. It's like, dude, who doesn't want to see that? You know what I mean? So, and according to Dave Meltzer, he said it's like this is not a bait and switch or anything. Like, they are really going to show the real security footage from that. So,
Yeah. So, what's your
it's-
thoughts on it?
I mean, I think it's kind of petty, for sure. But I mean, it's definitely going to pull people into to watch it. There's no doubt about that. A lot, like, they might even outdo. I think the first show ever that they did was like 1.3 million people, and they've never hit that number again. I feel like they might even outdo that number. They might actually outdo that number because of this. I could see them getting more than 1.3 million people.
Here's a good question, which I don't know the answer to. In the wake of one promotion's big show, a big success like WrestleMania 40, by all accounts, is a big success. So WWE this past week and leading up to this with The Rock and everything has gotten so much coverage. Does that help or hurt another wrestling promotion?
Like all like the how hot WWE was this week and all their coverage, you mean?
Yes. Does that help or hurt a group like AEW, which, look, when Stephen A. Smith on ESPN is talking about WrestleMania, he's not throwing around AEW, but is there a residual benefit for other wrestling companies when one company does awesome like WWE apparently just did? You see what I'm saying? I don't know the answer. I'm just asking the question.
I honestly, bro, I think the answer is 100% yes. And I think all you have to do is look at WrestleMania to see that, because you look at WrestleMania now and it's like basically like a week-long thing. You know what I'm saying? It's at least the weekend. It's at least like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But now they've expanded it where it's like a whole week basically. They had the WWE World this week and all this other shit, right? But look at all the independent pro wrestling shows that book around WrestleMania in the same town, same city, whatever. The WrestleCon or whatever wrestling convention does it. So it's like tons of people benefit off of that. And I think AEW can benefit off of that too. Actually, I think Tony Khan did a Ring of Honor show in Philadelphia on Friday. So he did benefit off of it. But I think that, like, look, this is pretty compelling because, like, one, Tony Khan did get a lot of people talking about AEW right in the middle of WrestleMania, basically, with this fucking Jungle Boy CM Punk footage. So, like, yeah, okay. If he plays his cards right, this could help him. Like, if he did some shit on this show that really like pulled people in, actually like booked a great show, this could help him. And especially if they show that footage and it proves that like everything CM Punk said was a lie, that's another thing too. You know what I mean? Then it's like, okay, well, that will, but the thing is I don't think people are going to really give a shit. You know what I mean? People aren't going to stop liking CM Punk even if he lied about that. You know, and
Okay.
security camera footage is probably not going to be like, you know, we all know what security camera footage looks like. You know what I
Black and
mean? So
white.
it's going to be a little grainy. It's, you know, there's not going to be any sound. You know, that's what I'm thinking.
I would say this also. I could see where they show the actual footage, but the Bucks can still be in character and still have fun with it and still ham it up his heels. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to, it's not going to be 60 minutes. Let's put it that way. It's
No.
still a wrestling show. They're still the chicken shit heel tag team, the Young Bucks, the annoying asshole Young Bucks. So I think they can show the actual footage, which is probably not going to be as compelling, or like you said, with the good camera angles. It's going to be
Yeah.
kind of weird and off-putting. I think the other thing, probably the question I would have is this a way to snag Jack Perry back in the mix? Is this a way to make Jack Perry like Young Buck number 3, like he would kind of take over the Kenny Omega spot as like the singles wrestler to team up with the Bucks? And some of the stuff that Jack Perry's been doing in Japan seemed to be a work shoot as far as I'm concerned. So with Jack Perry coming back, is that basically storyline stuff is what I'm getting at?
I mean, that's possible, but what I heard, and I think I just heard this today, was that, because remember how I said to you, I think yesterday when we were on here, I said about how on Wednesday the Young Bucks had, like, when they were coming out, they said something about, "Hey, scapegoat, we love your work," or something like that into the camera.
Yeah,
And
that's Jack
Perry
Perry.
had, yeah, Jack Perry. But then I also heard that I guess apparently Jack Perry has been like stealing Young Bucks moves and doing them in Japan, like literal moves that the Young Bucks always do and like only the Young Bucks do. So the impression that I got from when I heard all that stuff was that maybe there might be heat with them. You know what I mean? But also maybe not. And what you're saying is they could all be a storyline and they could come back. He could come back or something, be with the Young Bucks. I could actually see that happening. My only thing though is that, okay, Tony Khan did come out and say that he feared for his life.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't know exactly what that we don't know if there's any camera footage of that. I would imagine there is, but they probably won't show that if CM Punk did some, like, if CM Punk tried to attack Tony Khan, they need to show that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
because if the video is just CM Punk grabbing Jack Perry and like choking him for a second, and that's basically all you see, that's gonna be a fart in church, bro.
Right. Well, Alvarez said that the people that he's talked to that have seen the footage that they saw did not show any representation of anything where Tony Khan was threatened or should have felt by the visuals alone that his life was in danger from CM Punk or anyone else. And just to split hairs a little bit, when Tony did say that infamous quote from last year, he didn't say, "I was afraid CM Punk was going to kill me." He said something to the effect of, I've never been so afraid for my life before," which
Yeah.
could be interpreted just that the intensity of the moment, of tempers being flared, people out of control, whatever it was, frightened him to his Tony Khan core more so than anything he's been at a football stadium, either American football or soccer.
Don't take him to a
Football.
hockey game. Don't take him to a hockey game, bro.
Right. And I for whatever reason, I give Tony Khan a lot of slack. I just feel that this is a guy who, look, he's the Richie Rich with the money to buy a box of action figures and play with them, and we get to watch. And so if we don't like the way the Richie Rich plays with his action figures, we can go back to our other Richie Rich, Vince or now Triple H, or, so my point is, of all the things he can do with his money, he certainly doesn't need to start an alternate wrestling company and give guys like, you know, Powerhouse Hobbs a chance to work on TV every week, but he does, and Powerhouse Hobbs turns out to be a great wrestler.
He's a
And
great wrestler.
yeah, and would WWE have ever showcased Dr. Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa for half a year like Tony did? I don't think so. Would he have ever? He gave guys like FTR a platform to wrestle in tag team matches. Gave Tully Blanchard another run as a manager. I was there for the first Blood and Guts match, which was a hell of a lot of fun with Chris Jericho and MJF and everybody else. So my point is, for all the things we can shit on, and I even said before they went on to a weekly show, Dynamite, I said, please, Tony Khan, I made a video saying this, I challenge you to not be on AEW television for 90 days. And it took them less than a month, I think, to get on TV. So my point is, I wish that Tony would have been a little more humble and a little less, I need to be on camera like every other goddamn wrestling promoter. Let's get to some of AJ's comments because he's been pretty patient here. He's talking about Hunter at the press conference said that Brock was not going. Yeah, and so basically we had a couple of heavy hitters, Brock Lesnar, and yes, Brock's important because he was kind of, people were saying he was getting the Benoit treatment when his name came up in the Vince stuff, but then he kind of got what was that X-Men movie where like people disappear and then he kind of reappeared. So Brock has been come back, right? And
pretty much it seems that
he's
way.
come back. He never left, but he came back. And so
yeah.
There could be something there with Brock and Cody. There could be something with Brock, even with Damian Priest. I mean, if they find that Damian Priest is not putting butts in the seats, they can always hotshot Brock to return and just beat up Damian Priest, I guess.
Yeah.
And then AJ wants to throw something in about Timeless Tony Storm is good. Dana Brooke, I believe in Impact Wrestling, is ripping her off as Ash by Allegiance. I was like, Mikey, wow, you should see that, buddy. So I have heard of this. Yeah, in Impact Wrestling, the former Dana Brooke is doing basically a rip-off character of Tony Storm, Timeless Tony Storm. And my thing with Impact Wrestling, I was a TNA fan back when they had Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe. I was there for their cage match, their 6 sides of steel cage match in Worcester, Massachusetts. But I had some of their action figures for a while. They had the best action figures in wrestling for a couple of years. But when they started losing their network deals with Spike and they started getting demoted to different cable companies, and I don't know what the fuck happened, but TNA, Total Nonstop Action, Impact Wrestling went to the shitter. And for me, the final nail in the coffin is when they had Tessa Blanchard beat. First, they had her beat the jacked up guy at AEW.
Moose? Didn't she beat Moose?
No, well, maybe she beat him too, but the white guy, the guy that's like super jacked.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about too.
He's not Wardlow, Brian Cage.
Oh yeah, Brian Cage. Okay.
Right. So Tessa beat him, and then the winner got like a title match, and then she beat Sami Callihan for the title. And I don't like Sami Callihan either. But I thought that and look, here's the irony. I'll say this. Those matches of Tessa versus Sami Callihan were actually pretty good matches, very good matches for what they were. And I get it that Tessa Blanchard at the time was kind of this generational talent, and she was doing stuff and she was intense, and I wouldn't mess with her. I mean, she looks really tough. She looks legit. But to put a men's world title on her, I thought was an embarrassment to wrestling. And to me, it's also offensive to women's wrestling because it's basically saying being women's world champion is not good enough. You have to get a men's title, and it's basically cutting the balls metaphorically off the women's championship, because if you say that you can't be the women's champion, that's not a real title. You have to go out and beat the men. To me, that's diminishing the women's wrestling division. In any event, thank you.
I agree. And you know what too? That reminds me of David Arquette winning the belt. Kind
Right.
of reminds me of that. Just like silly.
And AJ is bringing up Women of Wrestling, which is interesting because that's kind of a reboot of a company that's like 30 years old. I think WOW was like Powerful Women of Wrestling back in like the early 90s, late 80s, which was kind of the second company David McClain did after Glow. So I think the WOW, that's kind of like, it's on some obscure cable. He's saying that it's also on YouTube, but last time I checked, Tessa was in that company.
Really?
That's a talent that's interesting because as so many wrestlers are signed to both WWE and AEW, that Tessa Blanchard cannot be forgiven or whatever. To work with either company is kind of a shame. But she pissed a lot of people off. All right, man, we'll wrap this up. I know you said you had to get to work tomorrow. I enjoyed talking to you, buddy. We had a nice
Hey,
viewership tonight.
Can
Go ahead,
I
buddy.
ask you one question?
Yeah, man, by all means.
Just, I need to ask you this before we wrap this up. Are you gonna watch Raw tomorrow?
I'm not. And the reason is, well, it's kind of it's just being honest. I don't have cable these days.
Oh, right.
I've been kind of a transient for the last 5 years. I've lived in 4 different situations in the last 5 years. I was doing YouTube TV. I discovered that after a while, the only show I was watching consistently with YouTube TV was AEW Dynamite. And for the it's YouTube TV got to be really expensive. It got to be like $100 a month. And because YouTube TV is basically like cable, and it has unlimited DVR, and it's a great thing if you want to pay the money. And the reality is, I just didn't want to pay the money. So the reality is, I don't have access to cable. So I do pretty much watch all this stuff in the YouTube highlights. I don't think I answered your previous question, which I'll get to real quick. The Wednesday night thing with
right.
with Tony Khan. You use the word petty. I think I would probably agree with that. I'd say this is Tony Khan. This is the equivalent to when Eric Bischoff challenged Vince McMahon to a legitimate shoot fight at a pay-per-view in Worcester, Mass. Like, this is the punching up the little dog, trying to get the big dog into a fight. But in Tony's defense, CM Punk didn't have to go on that interview, which I watched the whole 2-hour interview. CM Punk didn't have to talk about Tony Khan. He did say some derogatory things. He basically said he's not a boss. He's a nice guy. He said that the goal of AEW did not seem to be to make money. He said, if anything, it was maybe to have good matches. So CM Punk was pretty dismissive to the company that a year and a half or 2 years ago he was singing the praises of. So I can see why Tony could be a little pissed off about it. And if he feels that this footage is just one last week where he gets to squeeze some CM Punk footage to pop a rating, or if there's something there that we should all see, I kind of think overall it's a way to bring back Jack Perry into the company, probably in a heel contingent. If you had Jack Perry, the Rainmaker, and the Bucks as this heel foursome, that's where I think this is headed. That's the whole point, I think.
I think that's I got to tell you, bro, if that's what they do, though, I feel like that would be good. And, that would be pretty compelling to me. Because I feel like if they're going to air the footage, at least get something out of it. And what you're saying, they would get something out of it in that way. So,
yeah.
And hey, I can say whatever I want. Tony's making me watch it on Wednesday. Like, hey, I got to watch it. So,
yeah, he's hooked us. AJ wants to know a quick one. What's the worst thing they ever did for ratings they should not have done? The thing that this is really pretty dark, but I mean, when Owen Hart died, apparently his widow Martha really did not want the WWE to use any footage from Owen's funeral. They told her that they wouldn't, and then they did. So I don't think that the fans necessarily tuned in to see footage from Owen's funeral, but the fact that Martha specifically requested or specifically said, you do not have my blessing, or my request is that you specifically do not show any footage from Owen's funeral on TV. and I believe it was a SmackDown where they did show some clips from the funeral. So that's my answer. Do you have a quick answer for that one, Gonzo?
For the worst thing they did for ratings, off the top of my head, I don't know. The only the only thing that's coming to my head right now, this is so fucking weird, but naming a pay-per-view Great Balls of Fire, that was pretty bad. That was definitely bad. That's the thing that's coming to my head right now.
The funny thing is, I actually liked that pay-per-view because
Did you?
it was Samoa Joe versus Brock Lesnar,
Yep.
and it was a double heel main event. And for whatever reason, I didn't mind the title of the pay-per-view because I thought it was different. I thought it was obviously different because they only did it once. I thought
I just thought it was so random.
it was, and it was in summer. And the way that I remember it, it was like something to do with SummerSlam, where like they changed the month for SummerSlam, or Great Balls of Fire was in July, and then SummerSlam was in August, or. But for whatever reason, I didn't mind the Great Balls of Fire name of the pay-per-view, and I think the pay-per-view itself was actually quite good. But hey, I mean, that's why we talk about this stuff, to have a good memory and a good laugh, you know.
The main event was good. I will agree on that. The Brock and Samoa Joe was a good match.
Yeah, and I think that I would have liked to have seen Samoa Joe win the title because he was a full-time guy, and Brock wasn't.
Right.
All right, Gonzo, I'll
All
let
right.
you go, man. We went
Yeah,
into
I gotta
extra
go.
innings. All right, guys. Thanks very much. One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan YouTube channel. Subscribe, Gonzo. Thanks a lot. If anything you want to plug real quick, go ahead, Gonzo.
Again, follow me on Twitter, Gonzo Shark 1. Follow me on Instagram, the Gonzo Shark. And like I said, I'm going to be launching a YouTube channel real soon, so I'll come back on with you though before that happens. So
Sounds good, brother. All right, man.
all right, bro. I'll talk
Happy
to you.
WrestleMania. See you, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Later.
Later. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot.